I'm Lisa Shepard, and I am the Executive Director of the Chief Justice's Commission on Professionalism. The mission of the CJCP is to enhance professionalism among North Carolina lawyers, judges, and law students, a mission which it has been doing since 1998. One of the ways that the CJCP does this is to sponsor this historical video series, which is a collection of video interviews of distinguished lawyers, judges, and professionals from across North Carolina. The CJCP began filming these video interviews in 2000 as a means to preserve the thoughts of these bar leaders on the legal profession and on professionalism issues. All of the videos in this series are available to you on the CJCP website and the CJCP's dedicated YouTube channel. We are so fortunate to have had many distinguished members of the North Carolina Bar over the years, and they have much accumulated wisdom to share with us. It is important to understand that the practice of law is a profession, and doing it well requires not only substantive knowledge that one gains in law school and from studying for the bar exam, but also the value of experience learned from other lawyers. I hope that this video series will give you not only a fresh insight into the person being interviewed, but also some meaningful information about how to be a better lawyer in your own practice. Enjoy, and remember, esse quam videri. Strive to be professional in all that you do, rather than to merely seem so.
I first met Leary Davis when I was a student at Campbell Law School. And at that time, in the second semester of our first year, Leary taught a course that was, I can't remember the exact name of it, it was like Lawyers, Leadership, and the Profession. And we nicknamed it, and I think this has been heard many times, we nicknamed it Leary Theory, because it was, he's a very theoretical guy, and he was tying things together that tied theoretically, but as a first-year law student, you're like, okay, do we have a test now, or we have a test later? We just weren't sure. I remember thinking, I can't believe he thinks we're this smart, that we would understand what he's talking about. But he never talked down to you. He always brought students up to where he was.
I first met Leary as my professor in law school, a second-year law student. And then when I graduated, I went for a one-year clerkship, but then came back to the law school as a legal writing instructor. And so Leary was a colleague. One of the first things I remember is he was the first member of the faculty, I think, to tell me, you don't have to call me Dean Davis. We still referred to him, even though he had stepped down from being the dean long before I was a student at Campbell. Everyone called him Dean Davis, and he stopped me and said, don't call me that, call me Leary. We're colleagues now, and I always thought that that made a mark on me, that again, that's the kind of colleague he was, kind of professional he was. He was a visionary leader. He really did have some really bold, dynamic ideas about legal education. He cared tremendously about the profession and his students. I think he really took to heart that he was training the next set of lawyers that were going to be out there. And I think when Elon started this law school, he thought, okay, we've got knowledge. Law schools teach students knowledge. They now teach them skills after the innovations that he put in place at Campbell. And he thought that lawyers, really by definition are leaders in their community, of course leaders in their profession, and they're called on to, they make an impact, whether they're a leader to one person, their client, or a leader to the profession, leader to the broader community. And so Leary developed the leadership program here. And that's been lauded nationally for its accomplishments, and I think that's two of his big innovations. Leary innovated with bringing the practical skills training to law schools, but also leadership training.
He was always involved in coming up with a new way to reach the students on the issues of professionalism. Leary saw that as an opportunity to not just teach the rules, but to teach behavior and to teach professional behavior and professional design and how to run a law firm and how to take care of your clients, and then launched from that this whole idea of leadership. That if you are a professional, then you are a leader. You don't have to wait to get elected to the city council or the state house. You are a leader when you're a legal professional and you go out and people ask you for advice. That is a leadership moment. And Leary had a way of tying those pieces together in a meaningful way that translated to students and I think translated to the profession. Leary has influenced legal education at every school nationally, one way or the other, either by example or by interaction.
One thing I think about with Leary is just how deeply he cared about, as I've said before, the profession and other people. And I can think about moments where he would tear up talking about a former student who, perhaps had been a long shot, that even the student would have admitted with their LSAT score or their GPA, their record, that they weren't the prime candidate for success in law school. But they talked to Leary, and when he was the dean or a professor at Campbell or at Elon, and talked to them about how they really wanted to be a lawyer, that they could make a difference in this profession, and he would see through the numbers and that they needed that chance, that they deserved that chance.
When I was teaching at Campbell with Leary, and I was still very young in my career, his daughter got married, and he was very kind and invited my husband and I to EJ's wedding, and the reception was at Leary and Joy's house. And I was still very intimidated and awe of him, and that's not on him, because he was really a very open person, but I hadn't seen him in a personal setting. And I remember going to that wedding reception, and it was so overwhelmingly obvious how much Leary loved his family. And I can still, in my mind's eye, see him dancing with EJ out in the dance floor that they had set up, and just how proud he was of his family. And it really took my understanding of him to another level, because he was a work colleague to me and somebody who I really thought of on a very intellectual way. And to see him with his family and see that interaction, which we saw more of when they moved to Greensboro and started Elon, it just really rounded him out.